In terms of the Jerry Springer show, I got you back. Okay. So we have to separate those stuff like that. Yeah, I got you back. This is two ladies. It's two ladies. You're on your own. I'm not jumping into a lady fight. Good evening. I would like to, on behalf of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association and the Vallejo Berea Church family, of which I've been given the privilege of being a pastor of for the last couple of years, I want to welcome you to our church and to our neighborhood. There are those of you I'm looking at, I've seen before. For those of you I've met for the first time, please, on the way out, say hi. Nice to meet you. And if you haven't met me yet, that will give us a chance to do so. Welcome, candidates. Appreciate you being here as well. At the Vallejo Berea Church, we have a very simple motto. We're not trying to be the best church in the community. We're not. That's not what we're after. We're trying to be the best church for it. And the best church for a community is very different than the best church in it. The best church for it has to have its heart connected to the heartbeat of felt needs. And Mr. Leo suggested that we use the church as a venue for this event. We began to talk about the different questions that could be asked of the candidates. We talked about this earlier. And I was convicted that the very same kind of questions that you could ask of a candidate, they could ask of me or church. What are you doing in your community to make effective changes with the resources that you have to connect with the people who actually live there, making an impact in their lives? So, the joke is you don't ever talk about church and politics in the same conversation. How about this? We're going to have a civil discussion and discourse about the needs of this community in a church. Actually, we are the church. At this time, I will bring to you Leo Kavanaugh. How about that? Oh, thank you. No, for them. That's right. I was like, why are you asking me for bathrooms now? Not for you. The restrooms both are out this door and to the left. The first one you come to is the female restroom, and the one around the corner is the male restroom. If you go too much further and out the door and into the alley, then whatever you want to use at that point. With that said, before I get in more trouble with the microphone, Leo.
All right, thank you and welcome. That's Pastor Roger Williams. So definitely talk to him. I'm Leo Kavanaugh. I'm with the Washington Park Neighborhood Association, and we did one of these about 30 years ago or so, a long time ago. And then the group went kind of dormant. We've been reviving ourselves, I guess, in the last year, and doing a lot of alley cleanups and some various things. So this is a perfect kind of thing that we'd like to do. The Washington Park Neighborhood Association goes from Sonoma to Broadway, Tennessee to Florida. And so we're part of District 5 for the council elections, and that goes roughly Sonoma to the highway and Redwood Street to Portola, with a couple little funny little things in there. So, and so I think it's wonderful that we have district elections and we have people have a closer connection to the different neighborhoods in Vallejo. At the same time, I think it's terrible that we have district elections because we have 5 wonderful candidates. I vote for them all.
Yeah.
So, thank a few people here, yeah, especially Pastor Roger, Andy Houston and Susan Harrington Cole, and I helped kind of plan the format here. And Patrick Gall is kind of the acting coordinator for the neighborhood group. Chris Dunn has done our publicity. Katie Reedy helped on the various other organizational logistical things. What we're going to do here today is each candidate is going to have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Then we're going to have a series of questions for everybody, and they'll have 2 minutes each on those questions, and then a so-called lightning round, just very short answers, closing statements, and then please stick around and you can talk to them individually. So, is there anything we need to do before we get to opening statements?
Can we explain timing?
The timing. Oh, so Suzanne is our timer over here, and so green means go.
Green means 1 minute left,
1 minute left, okay.
30 seconds left.
30 seconds left with the yellow.
Stop.
Look, the microphones, you don't need to control the microphones. Willie's got the controls back there, and he's pretty ruthless. Time's up. Time's up. Okay, and we try to do this fairly and not get too, don't worry about it too much. So they're seated alphabetical. I'm going to start with you, Tara. We'll go down the line. Then when we go through the questions, the next one will be Peter, and so on and so forth. Okay. So we have 3 minutes for an opening statement from Tara Beasley Stansbury.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Beasley Stansbury, your future councilwoman here for District 5. And I am honored to be here. I'm so grateful to be a part of Washington Park. So many of us candidates are, but what's near and dear to me is that I get an opportunity to serve here. And not a lot of people get to serve in their community, and so I'm forever grateful for that. I'm here tonight because District 5, if you've heard anything, you've heard me say this over and over again, it's time. And the reason why I say it's time is because we are tired of being the ugly girl at the dance. We are tired of having the P word thrown around. Not measure P, the P word potential. When do we get tired as a city of having so much potential, but not reaching that potential and not reaching our maximum height of ability of what we know we can be, what we want to be, what we feel we can be, and what we see we can be? How come we aren't there? The point is we have to elect officials who are going to make decisions. Right now, we don't have leaders who can make strong decisions quick and fast and strategically. And we have to do so in order for us to grow as a city, in order for us to grow as a community, for us to grow as individuals. We have to push forward and make those hard decisions that we often don't want to make, but have to come face to face with reality and make them. And come to terms with those decisions that we make. Because as a leader, you have to make a decision whether it is right, wrong, or indifferent. And when I am wrong or if I am indifferent, I challenge you please to hold me accountable. My name is Tara Beasley Stansbury, and I am number 3 on the ballot, but we'll get into that later. Thank you.
Peter Bergenzer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Bergenzer, and I want to thank the Washington Park Neighborhood Association for hosting this event, and for the pastor for hosting it at the church. This is a beautiful establishment, and I'm very happy to be here. The sentiments that Tara just spoke of is exactly right. My husband and I moved to Vallejo because we fell in love with the city. We fell in love with its diversity. We fell in love with its beauty and its history, and really it's just a strong sense of community. And nowhere that I have lived my entire life, moving around from city to city with the VA, have I felt like I've been home since I moved to Vallejo. It's a great community. It's a place where we all can come together. It feels like everyone's hometown, and I want to restore those values that we have, the Vallejo values of this is a town for everybody. This is where we're home. This is where we're proud to be. This is where we're structured, and this is where we need to make sure we have our resources in place to make sure that we can afford to do the things we need to do to be a thriving city, to bring businesses to Vallejo, to strengthen and get security under control, making sure that we have a safe community for our neighbors, our friends, and our families, making sure that we're making really good decisions on how we use our land, the assets that the city owns, and then again, just really stimulating business growth, but finally making sure that we have equitable housing, affordable housing for everyone. It's one of the most fundamental rights of a human being is to have a place to live, and right now Vallejo just does not have affordable housing, so we need to try to do everything we can to fill in those areas. I think we were asked to give specific comments about who we are. Certainly, my husband and I, like I said, we live in the Grand Mahoney neighborhood. I just want to change gears a little here, because we were asked to provide specific information. I talked about the priorities just now. Distinguishing ourselves as a candidate. I'm sorry, I'm flagging this microphone around, but so what really distinguishes me, I think, from other candidates, I have over 20 years of experience working with the federal government at all levels of government in leadership roles. I have experience in federal interagency coordination, managing a budget of over $4 billion, which is more than 10 times the current City of Vallejo budget. Nationally trained mediator. I've managed an organization with over 8,000 employees. So I know how to make sure that resources stretch. I know how to make sure that we have enough resources to keep the programs running that we need to keep running. And I have that expertise to bring to the table. I'm number 1 on the ballot, and I'm number 1 for Vallejo. Thank you.
We were joking about dropping the mic, but I guess we won't do that. My name is Melissa Bowman, and I'm honored to be here running with this quality of other candidates. So we all care very much about Vallejo, and we care very much about our District 5. And it is time to shed a light on the issues that we have on District 5. That's why we're all here and why we're all passionate. So I'm sure that we all share the same amount of passion. What does make me different is my experience. I served as vice chair for the Architectural Heritage and Landmarks Commission. And I'm currently on the Planning Commission for the City of Vallejo. So I'm just completing my 2nd year. I'm also the Vallejo City Unified School District librarian, so I'm also working with our youth, our students, and staff that educate our students. 3 things that are important to me. Number 1 is, of course, the safety of our streets. I feel that in District 5, yes, we have potential, as Tara referred to. Absolutely, that's right. And a thoughtful redesign of our streets so that we have walkable sidewalks, separated bicycle lanes, and raised crosswalks with an emphasis on moving people rather than cars. And this also leads me to my 2nd priority, which is building our economy from the bottom up. And with a walkable city, with a walkable area, we can frequent those mom and pop stores, those smaller businesses. Big box does not need any of our help. But what I want to see is our smaller businesses thrive. My 3rd priority is connecting our unhoused with housing solutions, employment, and medical, the medical needs that they have, and I would like to involve them as part of the decision-making process. I've lived here since 2013. I've been married to my husband, David, for 38 years, and there's my son. He also lives right by us, so we have two of our family living here in Washington Park. Thank you.
Next candidate is Tanya Hall.
Hello, everyone, and I'm glad to be here. I thank everybody for being here too also. I'm gonna stick with the script and start off by saying that I am a native Vallejoan. I like to say that I'm deeply rooted in this community. And as for Washington Park, actually a portion of that has been in this Washington Park area, okay, back in the past. But anyway, I have a family history of over 120 years here in this city. I am a college and career advisor and also a primary care health professional with children. I've done a lot of community stuff all my life, I mean, ever since a child here. I have 4 children myself and also 2 fur babies. I love animals too. As far as committees and stuff, I'm a commissioner with Architecture and Heritage and Landmarks Commission. I've served 2 terms on participatory budgeting. I've also served as vice president for the Vallejo Youth Conservatory. I've established and started parent groups. I'm one founding member of an African American Parent Network. This is a high school organization. I've also been a Parent Teacher Network president. I'm a Girl Scout for life, and I hold that with pride. Let's see, I'm also a member of the American Youth Soccer Organization. And looks like and I'm also an intertribal council member. And let's see, you also asked what purpose for election. What are you seeking election for? And mine is purpose. And I'm just going to read this. I said that the citizens of Vallejo are entitled to have their concerns addressed and to be content with their outcome. This would take a person who can deliver proper representation for all community members and have the ability to be a team player as a council member. I am that person. My 3 goals: invest in industry, explore ways to secure Vallejo's self-sufficiency through economic development, and minimal impact on taxpayers' dollars. I would love to see, and I would, if elected, establish an enrichment foundation at 400 Muir Island Way. And this would be expanding over the outside existing curriculum, an emphasis on STEM, vocational training, and creative expression for our youth and for our adults. For the homeless, I would approach the matter of the unhoused to a mandatory 3-tier system, which would provide wraparound services promoting self-sufficiency and ensuring well-being. Individuals would be required to participate in the service and determine qualified evaluators.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you for all in attendance tonight. I appreciate the Washington Park Neighborhood Association for all the hard work that they put in to create this event. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Ms. Suzanne. I know you guys are a vital part of the neighborhood, and we appreciate this opportunity. My name is Dwight Monroe Jr. I'm running for Vallejo City Council in District 5. Three of my priorities, that was one of the questions in the opening format. My 3 priorities, one is economic development, focusing on business retention, focusing on making sure that businesses are actually happy with the city, providing the correct steps that we can move forward with rebuilding and planning on different businesses, creating more of an industry that is stabilized, that will stabilize our central Vallejo area. I'm talking about Broadway, Tennessee, all the way up to Redwood, kind of revitalizing Vallejo, looking for definitely a more prosperous city at this time. My second priority is youth programming. I believe that's something that we're currently lacking in the city. We're not focusing enough on our youth, which is, quite frankly, just not focusing on our future. We need to focus on getting some different YMCA programs, different Boys and Girls Clubs, different things that can engage our youth to deter them from some of the things that are currently happening right now. As you know, we're actually experiencing quite a spike right now, and it is something that we need to focus on, is kind of changing our mindset for our youth so we can actually give them a chance to prosper in this city and grow as young leaders. Thirdly, police reform. So we're currently focused on the police oversight model. My main thing, we definitely got to support this common ground model that's coming out right now. City Council just spoke on it a few weeks ago. We had some positive discussions, but we still in the moving forward process and just need to figure out what are the final steps to actually obtain police oversight here in this city. What distinguishes me from the rest of these lovely candidates here in respect to everybody here is that my leadership. I'm a young person, but I've been devoted to leadership since I was 15, 16 years old. And that's not something that I'm gonna knock on anybody. But I truly believe that I've been preparing for this moment. I've been preparing very hard for everything that's coming my way. And we just taking it step by step. I currently serve on the Economic Vitality Commission and also part of the Vallejo Naval and Historic Museum Board. So I like to think of myself as that candidate that's deeply rooted in the community.
Now we're going to go to a series of questions, and they'll have 2 minutes each to answer. So what I'd like to do is have Peter answer the first, and we'll go through everybody, and then the next question after we go through the cycle will be Melissa and so on. Let's just rotate here. So anyway, though this is for everybody, starting with Peter. The police. The Vallejo Police Department has been roiled by questionable shootings. Thank you. The Vallejo Police Department has been roiled by questionable shootings, accusations of badge bending, threats to journalists, and more. They have gotten a terrible reputation, and it is getting harder to recruit good officers. Vallejo officers are required to work lots of overtime and still don't have the time to follow up on most cases. How would you work with the city manager to turn the Vallejo Police Department into a well-functioning force that fairly serves all the people of Vallejo?
Very good question. I agree wholeheartedly with all the comments that you just talked about. I think that, we need to take a step back, take a look at the police department and determine what are core functions and what are not core functions. Core functions, high crime, those types of issues where we need armed officers to respond. But I think we need to take a look at restructuring some of the police, hiring lower level officers who are maybe unarmed so that they can answer wellness checks, they could answer code enforcement calls, they could answer non-emergency 911 calls. And I think just having that more presence in the area would be great. I feel that we need to take a look at the building that they're in. I feel that it's harmful, and I'll just say that it's harmful for the employees who are working there. There's toxins in the building that need to be addressed, so it needs to be relocated. I would like to see the city take a stronger look at its current location and just building, directly behind it and building a new structure rather than spending all the money to move the library and then putting the police in the library building. I feel that nearly $100 million can certainly be spent on a top-notch facility. Having a state-of-the-art facility would allow us to recruit better officers or more officers to come to Vallejo, because we are hiring officers left and right. We were just at the last city council meeting, they brought on 12 officers. And so I think it's important to know that officers are coming and we are able to hire, but it's slow coming. And I think a lot of that has to do with the morale. Working in VA for years, every time that there was a black eye, something happened with a veteran, it affected everybody's morale in the VA. And I think that same thing happens with our police here. But I think, we need to also take a strong stance on timeframes, making sure that when officers do wrong, we're able to follow up with those reports and those investigations and make sure the chief can make a decision before the statute of limitations cuts out. Thank you.
Right, well, the original question was, how will we work with the city manager? So I think working with the city manager on strengthening our police department would include a study of cities that have an effective police department, and by effective, that they're an integral part of the community. I have lived in communities like that. There are definitely some models where the police are viewed as an asset. Right now, we don't have that happening in our city. There is a clear path to get there, but it will require a study. And then finally, implementation, for that to all work. It will not be quick. It will take research.
Okay, the first question was,
Basically, how would you work with the city manager to turn the Vallejo Police Department into a well-functioning force that fairly serves all the people of Vallejo?
okay, I would start off by incentives. Okay, offering cadets incentives, meaning, and also actually doing contracts too with them, to some kind of way to keep them here and, keep them engaged. Maybe even offering low income or low interest rate housing for them, home ownership, because that's a longer stay. As far as our city, I see the city, we do have our issues, but lately, I'm sure all of us have noticed that it's been getting a little bit better. We don't hear anything about badge bending anymore, of course. That's in the past, so I think we should just focus on moving forward. They've addressed that situation, that's what I'm saying, they've addressed it.
You know they have.
And anyway, like I said, moving,
Hey.
moving forward, the, okay, so moving forward with that, I do see a notice with police activity. And I've actually even spoken to a few officers just to be speaking with them. And a lot of the not so much effort is because of the lack of consideration that they feel from us. And then I'm just going by what I was told, okay? And I believe that if we all come together and look at them as being human beings also, that results would be somewhat better for all of us. Let's see what else. I guess that's probably it. It was something else that you said. Oh, police location. As far as the police location, I think they should just keep it where it's at and build from it. There's offices and locations over in the Teamster area, if you call it, like the local, Teamster buildings and all that kind of stuff. There's empty locations there that they could move their other things that they need, like their library and so forth and so on. There's lots of space there that could accommodate them. I just believe that spending the money on it.
Thank you for the question, Leo. So something that I've done just in recent months is actually creating a relationship with the city manager. I actually had a meeting with the city manager and also the public works director just last month, and it was just it was to feel him out, kind of figure out how accessible he really is as a person, as a public servant to our city, and what kind of character he has. And I left that meeting, very confident that this man is actually trying to change our city. Now, one thing that I can say about the police department and how I can work with the city manager is implementing the steps that we need to take to actually get a new police department. I believe that's the number one thing that's holding us back. It's continuing to be cited and said that we got a lack of morale because our building is deteriorating. Nobody wants to come work for us. No city council people have been quoted saying they won't have their kids work there. So it is an environment that needs to change, and building a new police department is a very essential part to the community. We have to be modernized. We have to be available for the challenges that police face in this 2022, going into 2023. We need faster response times. We need better dispatchers. We need code enforcement. These sorts of things take time, but they also need support from the community so we can push and make sure that this is a nice transition. One thing that I was in favor of is actually keeping the police department there at Amador. I was envisioning more like when you're renovating a school, you make portables to create the space you need. Maybe we can get these dispatchers in some portables where they're not, at least in a harmful environment. Thank you.
I think, what we're dealing with is, and what we have to come to terms with is we're dealing with systemic racism within our police department. So we do have to attack that. A lot of the issues within the police department are internal. And so working with our city manager to make sure that they are demanding and mandating implicit bias training. That is something that is needed because our community, unfortunately, they don't understand our young Black brothers. They don't understand our young Latino brothers, our Asian. They don't understand them, and so you have to be able to be, in order to serve the community, you have to know who the community is. Going out, what I'm a huge proponent of is implementing 8 hours of volunteer. Each officer should be volunteering for 8 hours per quarter. That's every 3 hours at a local nonprofit here within Vallejo. And that is so they can get in the inner core of the city, not drive around on the outer perimeter in a cruiser with a shotgun in the car. They have to get out and talk and shake hands, and they should be knowing what business owner. They should not know them by name, no, but by facial recognition. And so those are some of the things we have to get inside of the police department, change the culture, and how you do that. No, it's not overnight. But it can be done, and it will take some time, but we don't have a whole lot of time, right? And so a lot of these changes need to be made now so that we don't keep perpetuating the same systemic racism. Another thing is working with our police officers union. Unfortunately, the breakdown there in the discord with our chief and the union is it is ripping the city apart at the seams. And until those two heads get it together, we will not have a successful police department. You can move them to the Taj Mahal and they will still.
So now we have another question, and then we'll start with Melissa. And so this is about budget. If you were planning for your own retirement and it was tied to the economic future of Vallejo, what would you do to plan for your future? What can you as a council member do to put Vallejo on a better financial footing and to direct more resources to the problems we are discussing here tonight? What are your plans to generate more revenue?
I do plan to retire here. Any moment. Okay, just kidding. Better financial footing and what I would invest in. Well, we need to invest in the children, in the education, and the arts. They're our future. They're going to be the ones who take care of us. We are an aging population. Median age in Vallejo is 37. Okay, there's not, so, and it's just going to get older. So, because our city has grown up, hopefully we attract youth, and by that I mean families with children who will attend our schools, who will become educated, who will, go into the healthcare industries and to college and to all of those other important things. But we need to invest in our youth. So programs that invest in our youth is what I'm looking at.
I have to agree with Melissa. Investing in our youth. I have to agree with Melissa. Investing in our youth is the key. I would implement a system that would give to our community vocational training, STEM, like I mentioned before, and also any type of post-secondary education. Those are the things that, of course, we want to see, our children involved in, and plus those are the things that will, enrich our city. I would do this by bringing in industrial okay, industrial foundation. You know, that way, these vocational trainings, these apprenticeship programs, all of this stuff can kind of like work within that. And without taking up money from the city itself, it'll be bringing in money and retaining money, funds. I would also put emphasis on adult education also, because, you know, referring back to our own house, you know, a lot of that needs to do with, you know, being educated or informed. So also offering services and programming that would help them become more self-sufficient, so they can contribute positively to our community. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Leo. I'm 30 years old, gonna be 31 on November 5th, so I'm far from retiring, I think, but it's all right. We still got a game plan and look towards the future. So the main things that I would look into as far as investing and seeking revenue here in Vallejo, the number one thing that you hear is we need to invest in our roads. We spend 8% of our budget on public works. I spoke with Ms. Melissa Tigbow, the public works director, part of that meeting, and it's definitely a disconnect. We need to get that number closer to about 15% so that people can actually feel safe when they're driving through Vallejo. Pothole vigilantes, they're kind of trying to come back up a little bit as well right now. So there's different things that are happening in the community, but I believe truly we need to invest in our public works department. As you heard in my opening statement, one of my priorities is youth programming. So I definitely look to, somehow getting we need to get a YMCA here or something where it's going to provide, a swimming pool when it's too hot, different things. YMCA serves all types of purposes. They serve purposes for the youth, the elderly, and just middle-aged people as well. So these type of fundamental elements of our community are going to generate revenue in the long run because we're investing in our community and we're actually giving people what they want in this community, trying to build morale and build better trust within city government and also the people of Vallejo. Thank you.
So I'm close to retiring. I am staring down the barrel of 50. I just look good. I'm old. Somebody in the last one thought I was 36. God bless you. I would bring biofarm companies like Genentech to Vallejo. I would implement what I've been speaking about, preaching and being an evangelist about is a revolving loan fund for our small businesses. It is a community-based loan that would stimulate our economy. A lot of our small businesses are failing. And so these programs, like the city of Richmond and Oakland and Pleasanton and so forth, so it's time for us to catch up. And that revolving loan fund is between $10,000 and $100,000. The funds would not come from us. Funds would not come from our budget. It would actually come from a community-based bank, and our economic vitality, as Mr. Monroe serves on, would manage that application process. Getting our youth commission back, that's something that's going to be key to put the youth in control and put them in the driver's seat. Right now, our youth don't have a voice, or they feel like they don't. And when it comes to the political sphere, when it comes to decision making, we need to bring our youth to the table. They're the future. And they are bright, they are intelligent. This generation has surpassed us by leaps and bounds, and it's time we acknowledge that. Programs that bridge people who are on social services to a pathway of success. Right now, 36% of our residents are on social services. So whether we like it or not, taxes are going to keep increasing because there's no larger corporations that pay taxes to offset that cost right now. Of course, our infrastructure that was mentioned before, our roads, our beautification. If you drive to Pleasanton right now, I guarantee all of you will say, how come we don't have that?
So I have 3 ideas. First of all, we need to hold property owners accountable when they have empty storefronts and empty buildings in the city. We need to hold them accountable and tax them on a monthly basis for having those businesses be vacant. We cannot drive or attract businesses to Vallejo unless we can prove that we have a thriving economy here. And when you drive through Vallejo, all you see are boarded up buildings and storefronts, and that doesn't make a good impression about our vitality here as a city. So, first and foremost, holding them accountable. Second of all, I agree with everyone here about the youth. I have started Vallejo Tech Talks, which is a lecture series at the Vallejo High School, where I have gathered a group of very high-level tech industry leaders, and we go into the high school and we speak to the students, try to get them involved, and try to get them interested in careers in tech, because we know there's a lot of money in careers in tech, right? And so trying to get them to be involved in that is fantastic, and mentoring them, it's been going really well. But I also think I agree with the words and the structure, and just making sure that we present our city on our best foot forward, making sure that people are aware that we are a thriving economy, and that we are able to do business here.
All right, our next question, when we start with Tanya, it's about streets and infrastructure, so a little bit touched on here. The people and equipment used to keep our city streets and infrastructure clean and functioning are often overlooked in tight economic times. They are out of the limelight and thus the first to experience budget cuts. Yet the appearance of our streets is critical to attracting new residents and businesses. How would you, as a council member, redirect the budget for the people and equipment responsible for the look of our streets? For potholes, illegal dumping, trash, branches and trees, streetlights. Tom.
First, I would concentrate on keeping it within the city's government rather than contracting it out. Most employees who work for the city, of course, are, CalWorks, city employees. And, they're there for a job, they're there to do the job, why not have them have the job to do? So, again, I would just kind of limit contracting out and keeping it within our own city employees. I know that they're probably overstressed and so forth and so on, not enough staff and all that. I think a lot of this stuff has to do with COVID also. But moving forward, I believe we can get it together, and if we just focus on, letting them or having them do it rather than reaching out and having contractors. We have enough vehicles, we have enough vehicles with extension necks and so forth and so on. We have, enough HME and equipment, within the city. So it can be done with just city employees rather than, and I think we could save a lot if we did it that way without contracting out so much. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Leo. So as far as infrastructure, definitely we need to get this number up from 8% to at least, I would say 12 to 15% of our budget actually focusing on public works, focusing on rebuilding our streets. And a lot of people are, either not saying it in public or they're just afraid of the bite. But, obviously this Measure P is focused on cleaning up a lot of the things that Mr. Leo mentioned in the question. The blight, the infrastructure, the streets, the homelessness. These sorts of things are something that the 18 million it's estimated are going to address as far as language in the measure. Now, it's very strange to me that people are against the measure, but not only against the measure, people are actually saying we can't trust city government, but we're actually interviewing for this job. And I need you guys to trust that I'm actually going to be holding myself accountable and actually going to do my very best to ensure that these funds are spent in the right direction. I believe that is the message that should be said, instead of we can't trust who we're putting in here, but we're actually applying for the job. So you actually need to redirect that and focus on holding yourself accountable and making sure that your community can actually reach you and be an accessible part of the community, so that if they do have any questions, that they can contact you and you can go ahead and explain your reasoning or, have a discussion. But I appreciate you. Thank you.
Good old Measure P again. Infrastructure is crucial. It is the bare bones of any city. And it's what drives economic development and growth. And it is also what makes a family drive down the street and say, I want to live here because it looks perfect and harmonious, right? And how do we get that money to do that? There is a measure on the ballot. It is not enough. I will say that. It is slated to bring in $18 million. It does have a oversight committee attached to it. We are interviewing, as he said, for the job, and so you're saying, we're hearing, I hear a lot that, we can't trust the funds to be watched over, but yet you said you trust the person that you want to put into office. And so we do have to look at what that money will be spent on and demand the list of items that it will be spent on. I think infrastructure also, in order to fund it, we will need to pull money from the budget. We have to reallocate somehow. We can't keep continuing to raise taxes, and how do we do that? We have to bring in larger corporations to offset that tax money. I'm gonna keep saying it again, you have to. There's nothing you can do about it. Whether we like it, it doesn't matter. We have to do what's best for our children. It's not about us anymore. We're old. It is about these children and how they are going to raise their children and what environment we are going to create. My legacy will be making sure that I am a personal watchdog to make sure that those funds will be used for infrastructure. I do see a lot of head nods. I don't care.
Well, I would like to start off by saying, comparing ourselves to other like cities, you look at our budget and we have $130 million in our discretionary fund or our general fund. You look at cities like Richmond and Berkeley. Berkeley is proposing to spend $23.8 million on roads and infrastructure next year. We have budgeted for just over $1 million in Vallejo. We have twice as many roads. We have twice as much highway. And we cannot survive on just $1 million for our budget. So I agree, we absolutely have to put money into our roads. I have walked around through all of our district. I've done about 22,000 steps a day on average for 6 days a week, talking to thousands of residents. And the number one resounding issue is our roads and the potholes. And we have to do something about it. It is a fundamental responsibility of our government to plan and budget for roads. And that's exactly what we need to do. I am not a proponent of Measure P. I do not agree with Measure P. I do agree with the fundamental aspects of Measure P, but I disagree with some of my colleagues here because I can hold myself accountable, but I'm only one vote on the city council. There's 6 other votes, and I can't say how they're going to vote on that and how they're going to spend the money. And I feel that people who support Measure P are just not going to get the infrastructure changes that they're hoping for.
Federal funding is coming in the way of infrastructure. You may recall that the infrastructure bill was passed. Those funds are going to come to Vallejo, and they are specifically to fix our roads. So I just want to give you hope there, okay? Regardless of whether P passes or not, there is money coming. And we will be able to redesign our roads. We will be able to invest in our older infrastructure, which we have throughout District 5. Our roads, our sidewalks, our sewers are about 100 years old in probably the majority of places. Sometimes you can look on the sidewalks and you see the things from the WWVC. Yeah, from the, turn of the century, the first, the New Deal, that, the New Deal. So, those, I treasure those, I'm not saying get rid of those, but the money is coming where we can renew our streets and our walkways and all of these other things that we've been discussing. I'd also like to emphasize that a walkable city is less wear and tear on our streets. If we continue to emphasize walkability, using public transportation, using separated bike lanes, that's less wear and tear on streets already, and we're on the way to an improved way of life and improved community.
Our next question is about homelessness, and Dwight will start out. Several people died while theoretically being helped with housing during the pandemic in Vallejo. The number of people camping throughout Vallejo seems worse than ever. What approaches have you seen that would help alleviate the problem of homelessness?
Thank you for the question, Leo. So as far as homelessness, I take a hands-on approach. I'm someone who's out there actually cleaning up this trash, cleaning up the debris in these different encampments to try to improve the health and safety of some of our unhoused community members. I've participated as recently as in the coastal cleanup. I see a nonprofit member in here right now, Angels of Mark, who actually goes out to Couch Street, pretty much our most deprived area, and they go hand out sandwiches, water, food. I've joined them on many instances. So I like to think of myself as a person who's going to go hands-on, really try to solve the situation and figure out what are other ways that we can alleviate the pain and the circumstances that these people are going through here in Vallejo. The Navigation Center is at the forefront of my mind when it comes to thinking about how are we going to help our unhoused community and giving them a place of resources where they can actually find direction and actually moving on and restabilizing their life. So maybe one day they do get an apartment, they do get a car again, these different things, working different type of elements into their life that can restructure their life, job training. I'm a mechanic. I'll teach anybody how to do brakes, just ask me, literally. That's definitely a way of revenue. But these sorts of things, we need to actually focus on investing in giving our homeless people, our unhoused community members, the resources that they need so they can find a way either back home or if they're real Vallejoans, get them off their feet and get them back to prosperity. Thank you.
Good points. Homelessness is so much bigger than myself and all of us. It's a global issue. And we have to start looking at what our homeless brothers and sisters need as opposed to what we think they need. If you've never been homeless, you don't know what they need. If you've never lived in your car, you don't know what it's like. And we have to start bringing them to the table. And that is not bringing someone who has been there before. Joey Carzales sits on the board of Housing First Alone, as I do. And he is one of the proponents because he has been there before and he knows what it's like. And so he brings the most value. And it is time for us to start speaking with people about the resources. We had our recent hit count, and it showed that point in time, I hate acronyms, the point in time count was the homelessness increased by 28 people. It couldn't have been because there's an additional 10 or 15 people that live almost close to my house right now. And they live in their cars, they live in the park sometimes, they park in front of the car until they can go somewhere. And so offering them wraparound services, figuring out what they need as far as mental health, drug abuse programs. There are a lot of veterans out there that are homeless. I also sit on a board where we house homeless veterans. Our veterans are homeless and they serve our country and they should be living somewhere warm, not a car. And so we have to figure out how to get them their resources. Again, 36% of our people are on social services. They will be homeless next if we don't figure it out.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Tara said. It is a global issue. I'm personally working for the VA during my tenure during working for VA. The homeless veteran program manager came to me with an issue. She was a personal friend of mine because she had to get homeless veterans off the streets when they tested positive for COVID. So we worked together to try to coordinate and convert some of our contracts that we already had in place to reword those so that we're able to get them through the contracting process through government, which you can imagine is very lengthy and timely. But we were able to turn that around and issue those to local hotels within the California, Nevada, Hawaii, and the Philippine areas, where we could contract with those local hospitals within 2 weeks, and we were able to get those positive COVID veterans, homeless veterans, off the street. So having that global perspective, knowing how to take issues head on and turn them around is something that I'm very experienced at. But I think also one of the big fundamental issues of homelessness, again, is the inequitable housing. We just don't have enough affordable housing in Vallejo. So what I would love to see is propose with the city council is that we would waive the building permit fees if we can infill a lot of our vacant lots within the city. If we can do multi-unit facilities, we can have 3 or 4 families living in an empty vacant lot. Why not see that turn on and see the building boom happen for Vallejo and get some of the homeless people off the streets. I think that would go gangbusters, and I think we would see a lot of turnaround if we had more housing available in Vallejo.
Mayor, could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I stay on track.
Sure, yeah. Good. Several people died while theoretically being helped with housing during the pandemic. Number of people camping throughout Vallejo seems worse than ever. What approaches have you seen that help alleviate the problem of homelessness?
All right, thank you. Well, in Los Angeles, what they have started is making villages of tiny homes as interim housing, while permanent housing solutions are, while they're coming up with permanent housing solutions. So these tiny villages, I'm just very excited about seeing this and in our state and in an area that I'm familiar with. One of them's in my, I used to live in North Hollywood, and there's a village, there's one of those villages there, so I'm very, very interested in that. So the tiny homes contain 2 beds, a table, a chair, and the residents are given a key so that they can lock up their belongings during the day while they connect with whatever needed services that they are getting. It includes community restrooms, and meals are served in these tiny home communities as well. So I think that is, again, a solution for interim housing while we help these people connect to a more permanent solution. So that's where I would start.
I agree with Melissa as far as the tiny housing goes, in a prefab form, of course. I think also that the residents who would be benefiting from these tiny homes should be one of the ones helping to build the tiny homes. Because, again, they are prefab, so they're easily put together. As mentioned before, I would prefer wraparound services, and these wraparound services would be in a tier level, like 3 tiers, based on need. Individuals would have to participate in programming and to see what their outcome is, so to get the best result from the outcome, actual participation. Referring to the individuals who passed, that's health, that's health services. And that's something that would be included in these wraparound services that I had mentioned. I would also implement having education. I think I mentioned that before too. Training and education. I mean, because some of our unhoused, and this is personally for me speaking with them, some of them prefer to be unhoused. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to be informed and educated. So I think we should, look at the full picture and offer the services to all of them, whether they want to not be in a house or they do want to be in a house. Thank you.
All right, next question, we're back to Tara. Long-term vacant commercial properties. Any trip along Georgia Street or Sonoma Boulevard or through our shopping areas will reveal a large number of vacant commercial properties. What do you see as a solution to fill our commercial properties?
We do have an economic development manager right now, thankfully. And he's going to be one of the important critical pieces to getting those buildings filled. We have to create a reason for people to come here, but we also have to provide resources for them. Starting a business here is difficult. I own a business myself here, and I wasn't reached with open arms at all. I had to literally almost drain my own savings account in order to fulfill my dream. And while that's not a complaint, you do expect the city, as they do in Richmond, as they do in Oakland, to have some sort of resources for you as a small business owner when you choose to do business here in the city. It's an honor, it's a privilege, because business owners can go anywhere. And I think offering, I know in San Francisco, they're offering a year free rent. That may be something we can't handle. But 3 months rent, giving them a discount on their permitting fees. We know that the loopholes are extremely difficult, and I'm no respecter of persons. It has taken me a year and a half to get my location open, and I'm sitting here trying to be a city councilwoman. So it doesn't matter who you are, the system's broken. And there's that bottleneck. Also, what I encourage is, stimulating our economy, and how we do that is encouraging spending local, encouraging to buy local. Those are some of the things that a lot of other cities do. They have a blitz, they have a social media blitz, they have a marketing blitz. Those are some areas that we haven't yet penetrated, and we're losing out on them because we are failing at the technology game, because we just do not have that robust marketing, and that is what we have to create. And a vacant parcel tax.
Like I said earlier, I agree that the vacant property tax needs to be enforced. It's been on the books for years. There's a certain few number of people that own several buildings in Vallejo that continue to let it sit empty, hoping for the next big boom and trying to make it rich, but it's not helping our economy in any way. We need to have thriving businesses here. Like Tara said, I agree wholeheartedly. It starts with all of us. We have a responsibility to shop at home, showing that we have a robust economy for groceries brings in Trader Joe's. We have a thriving business for clothing, brings in other fashion stores and things. So just buying at home instead of using Amazon is a big deal. It's very important. Also, small businesses. Now more than ever, we need to support small businesses. I would love to propose that we do a grant to provide solar power for small businesses. There's a lot of things that are the small businesses can't control in cost. Things like their employees, right? The state of California keeps increasing our cost of living and increasing the living wage. That's not something that the small business owner can control. But things like utilities, things like solar power, reducing their disposable waste costs, are all things that we can do as a city to try to support and help our small businesses, because they are the heartbeat of our city.
So the question concerned the vacant buildings, vacant commercial buildings, and certainly we see a lot of those along Sonoma Boulevard. Part of the code revision that we did on the planning commission last year that was implemented in July of 2021 included allowing housing on Sonoma Boulevard, which had not been allowed for a long time. And much of what we discussed was having the potential to convert those unused buildings into permanent housing and multifamily housing. So that is definitely what I think we should be encouraging the use of. The parking is built in. You know, we could actually be using the space in the parking lots that sit empty by converting that. And that can be part of our affordable housing solution. That can be part of assisting our homeless population with finding permanent affordable housing, and in fact, because these are built in kind of a mall, you know, sort of a mall-ish sort of a thing, you know, you can have services that surround and these wraparound services that we've been talking about all night. So I really think that's where we're headed with these vacant commercial buildings, is to convert them into housing so we have housing for all.
Okay, so for the empty structures, first of all, I would implement taxing or holding the actual owners accountable. Because two things, if they're not occupied, they can dilapidate, or they can have individuals moving in without being allowed to move in. So why not just go on and let them move in? You know, we as a city could offer them an incentive, such as like a leasing type aspect, you know, maybe a year lease to the city, so the city can utilize the structures for unhoused, or for other business, if you will, you know, going back to like the vocational training and education centers and so forth and so on. But anyway, I would first and foremost, number one, hold them accountable, you know, tax, because none of us wants to hear that tax word. So if you put that out there, they'll be more, you know, apt to kind of like go on with the program, go along with it. So that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Leo. As far as businesses and economic development, I serve on the Economic Vitality Commission. We're actually going to meet, I believe, on the 12th of this month. So tune in to that, because that'll give you a little bit more insight as well. But as Ms. Tara mentioned, we just hired an economic development director, Mr. Michael Neiman. And he was just introduced at a recent council meeting. So part of working with him is going to be building and gaining more knowledge on business retention and business expansion. Now, as a local business owner myself, one of the challenges that I had initially was getting a business license. I thought that just having an LLC was enough to operate, but I realized as I was trying to seek after grant monies and things like that, that I need to have that current business license. I didn't really find too much difficulty with that. So I'm not sure if we just need to educate our public a little bit more about the process to start a business, because there are plenty of entrepreneurial type people here in the city, but maybe they just need a little pat on the back. Maybe they just need a little guidance to actually figure out how we're going to create a business. And as far as this vacant property tax, we do have something in our charter available for our resources, but we need to start enforcing it and actually enforcing it for real. Because as I mentioned, you know, a lot of people know the main business owners that are here in Vallejo, that run Vallejo, but we need to hold these folks accountable so that we can actually bring in this revenue that we're crying for, and move forward. You know, I mean, simply hand them the paper, serve them like you would serve anybody else, and make them decide on what they're going to do. But we got to push the You gotta push the button there.
So the next round, we'll start with Peter. It's about prostitution. It seems as if it seems as if the city is content to have prostitutes out on the street as long as they are in the central city, including District 5. What priority should fighting prostitution have in Vallejo? How about the so-called massage parlors that advertise their services throughout the Bay Area? How can we help the women who are trapped in these lifestyles?
Thank you, what a great question, and I appreciate that. You know, trafficking is a very serious issue. I think of it often even when I drive up past Lemon Street and I see the municipal signs and things, and how heart-wrenching that is, even to me. I never met her or her family, but I think of her often when I cross onto that bridge. And I see the prostitution. I see what happens when you drive up Sonoma Boulevard and you get to the Florida Street area and you start seeing the ladies walking up there. We need to figure out ways to get them, the help that they need. They have services that they need. They have educational things that they need. They even need, their identities back. They need to be given, help to get their IDs and get away from the pimps and the different organizational crime that is holding them hostage. So I think that's something that we need to focus on. It's my understanding the city's stance has been that the county is looking at an overall plan for prostitution. But I think we need to do more. It starts with our residents here in Vallejo. They are residents of Vallejo. They are our family and our friends, and we need to look out for them.
You're really waiting to ask a difficult question. Prostitution is not going to go away. It is the world's oldest profession, so, So I think that we're going to have to take a pragmatic look at it, and that the sex worker industry needs to be regulated and zoned. Okay, we're not going to get rid of it, but I would like to see it regulated because I see it as a humanitarian issue. I do want these workers to have their rights restored. I want them to have regular health checkups. I want them to be able to think of themselves as entrepreneurs. And that's going to take some education. And I think we should be, again, offering those kinds of things. Let's find out what Vegas does. They have a successful model. Let's find out what Amsterdam does. It's off the streets in Amsterdam and in a storefront that is regulated and away from small children and families. So those are my thoughts on that subject, and it merits further and deeper discussion.
I would propose keeping that in Amsterdam and Vegas. I wouldn't really want it here as a business. I would propose addressing the situation with, first and foremost, order. Because again, some of these ladies they're forced in this. They don't have any choices. So if we have like a task force that addresses the situation, then we can get better solution to it. I would also, again, I keep going back to wraparound services. That's basically wraparound services. If someone is in this, it's not really a relationship, but I guess it is somewhat a relationship, this controlling, they don't really have a say-so. But then again, they don't think they have a say-so. So perhaps they need to be educated to know that they do have a say-so. So that's what I would implement. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Leo. So as far as prostitution, it's definitely something that I can say that me and Miss Melissa deal with on a daily basis. I live on Kentucky and Napa Street, and I'm right a block from Sonoma. They're on Kentucky every night. I've been living here in Vallejo 8 years. I've I've seen some girls grow up, you know, they disappear and then they come back, and I'm like, oh God, thank God that she actually came back and that she's not like gone or abducted or something. So sometimes I get a little bit like, thank God I see her again, even though she's definitely in a very unfortunate circumstance. As far as creating order or, you know, managing this situation, I've done a lot of history on it here in Vallejo, and from what I've heard is that this has been something that's been deeply entrenched in Vallejo, in particular this area, for a long time, you know, from the Navy days, the naval shipyards and stuff. So it's something that is very entrenched in this community and is deeply part of this community. However, you know, I don't have a daughter yet, but when I do, I don't want to come home and see young girls standing on the corner. Or it really throws me off, where it really gets me is when they walk past the church and also the school that's right here. That's where it's just like, all right, you know, we already know what you're doing, but keep it on Florida, keep it on Kentucky, or whatever you got to do. But we got to work this out. We got to come together as a community. We can't confront these young ladies because it's very close to the homeless situation. You know, these people are impacted by something that we can't just relinquish what they're doing by just going to talk to them or praying for them. We actually got to figure out what they need, the resources, and almost kidnap them if they let you. You know, take them out of that situation if you can. Thank you.
Unfortunately, a lot of the women have lost their dignity. They've lost their way. And a lot of this, again, is systemic. There's something going on at home. There's something, you know, mental. There's a lack somewhere. There's a tip line right now for, I believe, Report a John. You know, similar to how in the 80s, people who were using crack cocaine were penalized for being a user, but the drug dealer was walking around scot-free. And so it's sort of that same analogy. And I believe sometimes we want the best, but I think we have to start really getting a lot tougher on our crime. Of course, this was a Navy town. That does come with the territory. However, there are certain places where you're not going. There are certain places where you're not going to ever see a prostitute walk up and down the street. That would be my goal. We can't continue to use the excuse, it's here, it's entrenched, there's nothing we can do. There's absolutely something we can do. We can talk to Pleasanton, and we can talk to Dublin, we can talk to Berkeley, we can talk to so many other cities to where we can come up with. Now, it's not going to go away overnight, but I just don't believe that we're going to turn a blind eye to it. It is not, it's not okay to see women half naked walking up and down the street at no point in time ever in life. My heart goes out to them. You know, they are stuck and trapped in these, you know, there's no type of relationship. I don't see it. These women have been abducted almost. They do not have the ability to think on their own. It's not that they're not educated. Some of them probably are college graduates. We have strippers who are college graduates, so we can't say they're not educated. Someone has mind control. Once you have that,
So we have one more of the longer questions, and then we'll have a few very short ones and closing statements. And then please stay around to invite to visit with candidates, and if you have any questions for them. So anyway, this last of the longer questions, we'll start with Melissa, and it's about Airbnbs. Many units in Vallejo are being converted not to provide rental housing, but to be used as temporary Airbnbs. Homeowners are finding that they are suddenly living next to party houses. How are these properties being regulated, and what else needs to be done?
Well, as far as I can tell, the the regulation has been very light here in Vallejo, as opposed to San Francisco or Marin County, where the owner has to be on the premises and present. What I'm seeing on my own block, because everything I want to improve about Vallejo comes right to my doorstep, is we have something advertised on Airbnb. Yes, I looked it up. And there was that lovely property being advertised as, a nice, pleasant, quiet street. So I reported to Airbnb and told them about some of the goings on, some prostitution and drug dealing. I reported it. And they said, well, what evidence do you have? Like, you need to come see this. You need to come see this. So we need to get some teeth in that. I'm very passionate about that. It annoys the heck out of me. Well, more than that, but I can't use four-letter words. We're in church, good heavens. So, but oh my gosh, we absolutely need to get that law on the books, that the owners of the property need to be on the premises, otherwise they cannot have an Airbnb on my block. Thank you very much.
Yes, I agree with the owners being on the premises, but I also agree with the owners being held accountable. Because just because they're there doesn't necessarily mean that they're, they don't know what's going on and just letting anything shenanigans go on. So, that's what I would propose. I mean, just, for the actual owners to be more in force and to keep order. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Neil. As far as Airbnbs, personally, I feel like homeowners should have whatever say they need to say. They should not be infringed on. As somebody who's aspiring to own a home in the future, I personally don't want my neighbor always telling me what I can and can't do. That's just something that I truly believe in as a homeowner or as somebody who's aspiring to be a homeowner. However, these people must be held accountable. There was recently a shooting. 2 young men just passed away this weekend. They went to an Airbnb party this weekend. 2 young Latino men, I believe it was out of Oakland. And these 2 young men were murdered, essentially. We don't know the details yet, but they were 17 and 15. Now, nobody's saying that these people can't have parties and stuff like that, but they need to be held accountable if something occurs. And that's just the bottom line. If there's a shooting next door to you, of course, that needs to be regulated and verified that this person can no longer, involve themselves in these activities or have Airbnbs, whatever it may be. I know if you're in a homeowner association, it definitely will be something that will be frowned upon, and you probably won't be doing Airbnbs. But these type of different regulations, they can infringe on the rights of homeowners. And I truly believe that if we just stick to holding people accountable that are authorizing these illegal parties and stuff like that, that's actually leading to this danger, then we'll actually get to the root of the problem. Thank you.
So I'm a homeowner and I have to agree, when you purchase a home, that's the most expensive thing you're ever gonna buy in your entire life. So, what I do, what I do with that property, really is your business. But it is absolutely your business to make sure that anything that goes on at that property, that you're responsible for. So that means, like we were saying, Mr. Monroe was saying someone was killed, you are now liable. So making people have that extra layer of insurance, but it also goes back to policy. What is our city doing to enforce policy? Unfortunately, Airbnb isn't going to do a thing. They are a corporation. They are about green and white Benjamin. They don't care. So while we talk to Airbnb, great. That's a great conversation. But we have to get to our elected officials and say, hey, listen, we need to start creating a policy here for our Airbnbs, because And if we do, it is very, very loose. It is not a strong policy. And so these are things that we have to do. It's not enough to say, oh, well, no one else is doing it. Guess what? Sometimes you have to be groundbreaking. You gotta be the first person to do it. We were the first to have participatory budgeting. We can be the first to impose laws and create policies for Airbnbs. If you don't like something in your town, it is your responsibility to let your officials know. We can't think of every single thing. I personally would say that, elected officials, they listen to what our public wants and needs. It's critical to our success in every city. You have to speak up, band together. I'll be there with you, believe me. You have my support. You have to make.
Well, I do think that there are cities that do have, already have codes in place, so I don't think we would be the first. But I do agree, I think that you look at Lyft and Uber and how those regulations had to come about as a part of making fair business for taxis and those types of things. We have to look at the same things that we're imposing on hotels and we're imposing on inns and bed and breakfast to make sure that the Airbnb, the fees and the taxes that they're paying, the requirements that they have, the insurances that they have to have, are all the same. So it's an even keel across all the businesses to make sure that everyone can prosper in the same way. So I feel like we do need some protection. I do agree that we absolutely need to speak up. If there's things that are happening in your neighborhood, you need to speak up to Airbnb. You also need to speak up to your council member. That's why we're electing council members in different districts, so that you know exactly who you're supposed to call when you have issues in your areas.
So now on these short questions, we don't have a specific time limit. Please keep it just to a couple sentences, and if you want to go into more detail, you can include it in your closing statements. And then also, let's not have any applause between these, and we'll go through nicely and quickly. So we'll start with Tanya here. What are the limitations of a council member's jobs? What can't you do?
Well, there's nothing that I can't do. I know being a council member would be a commitment, and more like a 24-hour commitment. So that's something that I can do. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As far as being a council member, I don't believe that you truly know the job until you actually have it, honestly, till you really know the ins and outs of what you can do and what you can't do. And that's just being honest, in my opinion. But thank you.
So I'm not available 24 hours, I'm gonna let you know now. I gotta sleep and I have a family. The city, of course, will be my number one priority. What you can't do is promise and over-promise something that you know you can't do. What you can do is go back on your word and your integrity.
I agree with Tara that I like to pretend that I am available 24 hours, but everybody needs to sleep, so I agree. We've all dedicated our lives, obviously, to running for city council. This is a lot more work than everyone can ever imagine. But I think, again, holding to your commitments, when you make a stance on a particular issue, not letting people sway your votes, or really having a strong foundation of how you made that decision. So using your morals, using your moral compass to make those decisions, and making sure.
Thou shalt not violate the Brown Act.
Starting with Dwight, we have a city manager type of government. Should we have a type with a strong mayor in charge instead? Just yes or no?
I truly believe that, when I think of political government, you should definitely have a strong mayor form of government.
I believe in a hybrid version. I don't believe one man or woman should have any autonomy and power over any city. That is how corruption starts, and we've been there, done that. I believe that council and the mayor should have that ruling. Thank you.
I also agree that, I like our form of government that we have. I think that the mayor, having a strong mayor, having a council that supports the mayor, will bring those issues to the city manager, who then will dictate down through the rest of the ranks and file of the city staff. I think that's important to maintain that structure.
I believe that we should have a hybrid manager-mayor form of government, similar to what we have now. Having a strong mayor is not going to, having a strong mayor type of government doesn't mean that it's going to solve our problems. There's another city called Minneapolis that is having the same kinds of issues with their police, and they're trying to figure out how not to have strong mayor. Okay, sorry.
So no, I don't believe in a strong mayor brand, but I do believe in a mayor support.
Okay. Starting with Tara, what is our city budget?
290 million, maybe more.
Yes, we have about 300 million for our city budget, and 130 million is for general purpose.
353 million.
300 million.
Yes, I believe it was just shy under 300 million when I was looking at it.
Okay, starting with Peter. Should the badge vendors in the Vallejo Police Department have been fired?
Absolutely. I think it's supposed to be a lightning round, so this is a huge discussion that should not be a lightning round issue, but yes, they should be held accountable, they should have been terminated.
Yes.
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 Thank God I'm in church. I can't say what I want to say. Yes. Unfortunately, Jared Ton was terminated for murdering Mr. Chantos. So there's a start.
Should we add non-sworn personnel that's not carrying guns to the Vallejo Police Department?
That starts with,
Could you repeat that? I didn't catch it.
In the Vallejo Police Department, should we add non-sworn personnel that do not carry guns?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Can you repeat? I'm sorry.
Should we add non-sworn personnel that do not carry guns to the police department?
For administrative purposes, not to fight crime. For code enforcement, yes.
Yes, I've already discussed this topic.
And so probably people have questions about a lot of these things we brought up. You might want to elaborate on them or whatever. So now we're going to have closing statements, just 1 minute each, and then please come up and visit. Yes. So we start with Tanya. You have 1 minute.
Well, as I said, I'm a native here, and I would be honored to be a city council member for District 5. I have years of experience, actually a lifetime of experience in community service. And of course here, it's all been here, right here in District 5 for the most part. Again, I'm number 4 on the ballot. So please check Tanya Hall. Thank you.
Thank you all to everybody who attended tonight. I just want to say Dwight Monroe Jr. for Vallejo City Council, District 5. I'm number 5 on the ballot. Why you should vote for me is that it is time for change. We keep going for the same cast of individuals. Everybody's tied up with this person and that person. I'm an individual who is an independent thinker. I'm somebody who has the heart of the community always in my mind. You're getting somebody who's going to be a real person up there. I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. And I truly believe in that. I truly believe in working in humanitarian efforts and also being transparent with any information that I'm provided to the legal extent I can share it. But you will always be in my heart just for showing up tonight, and also just think about changing. You know, I'm 30 years old. We need to give this young slate a chance. We need to move this city forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As your councilwoman, I will work diligently on the pressing issues that we're faced with today, not only in our district, but that are affecting our city. Unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of change, but I know that change is happening. Again, I'll restate, if you are tired of the P word, not Measure P, if you are tired of us not reaching our potential, if you are sick and tired of us not having all of the resources, not only that we want, but that we actually need to make this city, Vallejo, move forward, you will have to vote for Tara Beasley Stansberry, number 3 on the ballot. I honor you, and it is my honor and privilege to serve here in District 5. God bless you.
Once again, I'm Peter Bergenzer. I have bring nothing but experience to the table. It's easy to talk about change, it's easy to talk about why we need to have change, but it's more important to know that you have somebody who can facilitate that change, who has actionable proof that they are a change agent. I have over 20 years of experience at all levels of government, and that is no easy task for anybody who has worked in the government. They understand that how difficult that can be to move through the different hierarchies of government. So I have a proven track record with that. I'm available to the public. I've made myself available to all of you. I've come to all of your doorsteps across the city, and I'm number 1 on the ballot because I'm number 1 for Vallejo.
I'm number 2. I try harder. Let me walk right into that. So I have the experience of being on the Architectural Heritage and Landmarks Commission. I have the experience of currently being on the Planning Commission. I'm the district librarian. Vallejo is in my heart, and you know, we've got problems. I've got solutions, and with your help, we can get a lot done. Thank you.
We made it with time to spare, just like we planned, okay? So, only one of you is gonna get elected, but we hope to be seeing the other 4 of you. And you can start Saturday mornings in the alleys. No, just many of you have joined us already. So anyway, thank you for coming, and please, if you have any other questions, come on up and visit.
And if I cut you off, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait.
Bigger companies, they always have to do the demographic. Third Street. You get one store and you get third I think it's just not silent, but Third Street was just packed. These would be all valley down, everyone's going through it, nobody can. You get it. You said before, you're Thank you guys. Appreciate you letting us have it here. Okay, I did it, but haven't been able to ask any of the things, but you have my email, right? That's what